Hello and welcome back to the Essex Allotment Farm. For those who don't know me, my name's Alex. This is the Essex Allotment Farm. It's where I grow vegetables organically, free from chemicals and pesticides for my veg box service and markets here in Essex. Now this weekend, as you'll have seen from the beginning of the video, I've been battling the elements to prep some of the ground for this coming season. So I thought I'd take this opportunity to show you what I've been doing over the weekend, what I still need to do before the season really gets underway, and what my plans are for the next couple of weeks. So if you're familiar with my farm, you'll know that I'm stood in between blocks C and D here on the farm. I've got 6 blocks prepped up and ready to go, or in the process of being prepped up and ready to go for this coming season, which means I'll be growing on roughly half an acre. And this weekend just gone, I focused my attention on blocks C and D, which are 2 blocks that I grew in last year, but they were the last blocks that I prepared at this time last season. And frankly, I don't think I did a very good job of it. And I'll tell you why. The crop production out of these 2 blocks compared to blocks A and B, which are the first ones that I put together, was really low in comparison. Some plants struggled in this area. I don't know whether it was because the soil isn't or wasn't as good, or because of where it is positioned in the farm. So I wanted to take a bit of a reset in the winter, re-prep these beds and fill them with as much organic material and nutrients as I could, ready for the coming season. So let me show you what I've done. Now, the first thing I should say when we start talking about blocks C and D is, you'll have seen from the shots at the beginning of the beginning of the video, is that I've used a tilfer, which is something that I really didn't want to do on the farm. However, I don't have the time or amount of compost / cardboard and all those bits to do a full Charles Dowding-esque no-dig principle. Like I said, I'm farming on nearly half an acre, or cultivated nearly half an acre. I'm actually farming on much more than that. And I need to follow the principles of regenerative agriculture, which includes no-dig, but adapt them for it to be right for my space and right for where I am in the journey. So I'm not making excuses. These are decisions, and I don't have an opinion on whether you should be 100% no dig or what. I'm not part of that whole, battle as between no diggers versus diggers, which I've been part of or seen online before, and certainly talked about it before. But I have tilled these beds. Now, the caveat I should add to that is that I've used it on the highest setting, so I've only tilled the top 1 inch of the ground, and that's to help incorporate some of this stuff and also break up my very heavy clay soil. However, you're absolutely right, all you no diggers out of there, that work has got the possibility of unearthing more weed seeds. It's got, certainly will have broke up some of the fungal activity and mycorrhizal activity that was in the top 1.5 inches of this soil, because let's be honest, even if it's set to 1 inch, it's probably disturbing 1.5 inches worth of soil. But that is a price I've had to pay, and the way I make myself feel better about it, and again, this isn't a justification, this is just the reasoning in my head, is this land was barren, monocrop land for hay, as you can see behind me, for tens and tens of years. And by adding the tons of compost, tons of manure, and tons of other stuff that I'm going to talk to you about in a minute, I've added more biodiversity, increased fungal activity, increased mycorrhizal activity, sort of tenfold in the first season that I've been on this farm. So me knocking that back a little bit, absolutely, by tilling that top inch of soil, I completely get that, and I completely agree with that, and it's something that I hope to not have to do again. And I certainly haven't tilled blocks A and B, which are 100% no dig, but I have had to do it on these 2 blocks, and I will need to do it when I start to prep and break new land in this area up here. So what have I done in block B? I've sort of gone two different ways to try and see what helps the soil the most, or in my opinion has helped the soil the most. So these beds originally, and I'll pop a picture up, had some surface mulch of the rabbit manure and rabbit bedding that you can see sort of on the surface here. They had a mulch on top of these beds, and some of them still had crops in it. They've now been taken out this weekend, etc, etc. But the idea here was to mulch the beds with this rabbit manure and rabbit bedding mix. However, it was forming a hard sort of paste on top of the ground and sort of congealing together, and in the beds that I'd done so far, and I hadn't seen much activity of it sort of breaking down or working in or becoming part of the soil. And the last thing I want to have to do when I come to plant is move you know, congealed mess around to put plants in between it. So I've taken the decision to, like I said, tilth the 1 inch top layer of this block here, which is block C, and I've added 5 or 6 bags of the rabbit manure and rabbit bedding to every single one of these beds. And although they're not marked out very well at the moment, you can see that they are, well, you can kind of see from this one that they will remain the standard 75 centimetre beds wide at 15 metres long. And so yes, I've tilthed into that top layer some of the rabbit bedding and some of the rabbit manure, as you can see here, into the beds and giving it a better opportunity to work down. And then if I slowly spin round so that you don't get sick like a roller coaster, you'll have seen that on this block, which is block D, I've gone for the more traditional compost approach. So I've added, again, 6 or 7 bags equivalent. Obviously I get it in bulk in a big pile, but maybe 2 to 3 wheelbarrows full of compost to each one of these beds. And I've tilthed that compost in. That's purely because this ground, the ground that I was laying the compost onto, was rock solid, even with all the weather we'd had, rock solid clay. And what had happened effectively is it got wet, then got dry again and just set like concrete. So I took the decision to tilth that and tilth some of that, and it's quite woody compost, into the beds. And that's the 2 blocks that I did over the weekend using the machine that you saw in the clips at the beginning of the video. And you can see I've scraped some of the weeds that were in there up to the edges onto the mat, so I can go along and collect them or let them rot down, but they're all out the ground. You can see that it's looking, well, barren for the moment, and also ready for reshaping of the beds and then planting in the spring. I'm going to keep this video nice and short and sweet. So that's the bit of work that I've been doing over the weekend. It's really tiring, as much as that machine obviously is easier than sort of tilthing it or raking it and digging it over yourself. It is still hard work. It's really heavy. It took 3 of us to lift it back into the vehicle to take it back. I just hired that machine for cheap over the weekend. And obviously the weather was horrific. There was 3 of us out here in the pouring down rain for 3 hours on Saturday doing the block behind us. I did this one on Sunday myself. It was a little bit easier because it had been under the plastic tarpaulin to keep the weed pressure down. But I got this done and some other areas around the farm that just needed a little bit of work around the grounds, around on the outside of the fences and bits like that, where I'm sort of maintaining the ditches and sort of wildlife areas on the farm. So it was a really, really productive weekend. It was on hire. I didn't have all the time in the world, so I didn't take too much footage for you guys, but I hope this sort of gives you an indication of how I've prepped these 2 blocks and how I'll perhaps tackle the 2 remaining blocks that I plan to have cultivated for this year going forward. As always with these no dig versus dig approaches, let me know your thoughts, let me know what you're doing and how you're setting up your growing areas this season, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.